Nearly everyone, at least once in their life, has experienced an infectious episode of common influenza. Flu symptoms include headaches, nausea, fever and chills, muscle ache, general malaise, and sinus congestion. Despite pandemic losses to the disease early in the 20th century, modern medicine remains incapable of finding a cure. The first convincing record of an influenza pandemic was in the year 1580 AD, when the disease spread across Russia into Africa and Europe. In Rome, over 8,000 people died from the outbreak, while several Spanish cities were completely depopulated. Flu pandemics continued sporadically into the 17th and 18th centuries, culminating in the pandemic of 1830 to 1833, which infected upwards of 25% of exposed populations. Known simply as the flu, influenza is a recurrent infectious disease caused by RNA viruses of the Orthomyxoviridae family of viral pathogens. Flu viruses are typically transmitted by aerosolized particulate produced by the coughs and sneezes of infected patients, although flu pathogens can also be transmitted by direct contact with bird droppings, nasal secretions, and inanimate surface contamination. Influenza viruses can be inactivated by sunlight, disinfectants, and detergents, which is why medical practitioners encourage frequent hand washing during seasonal flu epidemics. Worldwide, upwards of 500,000 people die each year from common flu viruses, while during pandemic years that number can rise into the millions. Although death rates in the United States vary widely from year to year, the Centers for Disease Control reports a 20-year average death toll of over 41,000 lives per year. While common flu viruses continue to hold rank with some of the most lethal diseases afflicting humankind, the worst flu pandemic in recorded history inflicted unspeakable death and human misery beginning in 1918. Known as Spanish flu or La Gripa, 3 waves of the disease spread throughout the world in less than a 2-year period. While the first wave was relatively harmless, in August of 1918 the second wave rapidly turned to pneumonia, against which modern medicine at the time had no viable defense. The majority of those afflicted by La Gripa recovered fully, but in some patients the disease rapidly worsened to extreme chills, numbing fatigue, an unbearable cough, and ultimately fluid in the lungs. Victims of this lethal stage of infection developed a bluish cast to their faces, which would ultimately turn purple or brown. Once a victim's feet turned to black, death was generally only hours away. One doctor treating the disease in 1918 wrote that the faces wear a bluish cast, a cough brings up a blood-stained sputum. In the morning the dead bodies are stacked about the morgue like cordwood. Another story shared by a survivor told of 4 women playing bridge together late into the night. By morning, 3 of the 4 women were dead. Spanish flu invaded cities across the globe in an almost random fashion, hopscotching around the world without apparent logic or predictable demographic progression. Boston, Massachusetts, Freetown in Sierra Leone, Brest, France. In San Francisco, over 3,500 pneumonia cases were admitted to area hospitals with over 900 fatalities. Everywhere in the United States, public gatherings were banned. Schools, theaters, churches, and businesses were shut down by public decree. Nearly everyone wore face masks, yet nothing seemed to arrest the spread of influenza. Spanish flu spread like wildfire among American soldiers stationed both in the United States and abroad. At Camp Devens in Massachusetts, the first diagnosis of Spanish flu was made on September 12, 1918. 14 days later, almost 13,000 soldiers lay stricken with the flu. In the combat theaters of World War I, 24,000 soldiers died from La Gripa, while total combat-related deaths eclipsed flu deaths by a mere 10,000 lives. considered the greatest single most demographic shock that mankind has ever experienced. In the 2 years that Spanish flu ravaged the earth, 1/5 of the world's population became infected, with an estimated mortality of 50 to 100 million lives. In one devastating year, Spanish flu killed more people than Hitler, nuclear weapons, and all worldwide terrorist attacks combined. In the first 25 weeks of the Great Pandemic of 1918, as many as 25 million people may have died from the disease. Compared to the 25 million deaths associated with HIV/AIDS over the past 25 years, La Grippe holds rank as one of the deadliest unseen enemies throughout recorded history. In the end, despite frantic efforts to unlock its etiology and devise an effective cure, Spanish flu disappeared from the human landscape as quickly as it had arrived. While Spanish flu stands as the worst acute viral killer in history, other serious flu epidemics have emerged since the stunningly tragic days of 1918. H2N2 caused the Asian flu outbreak of 1957, while H3N2 caused the Hong Kong flu epidemic of 1969. H5N1 brought about the bird flu of 2004, while the Spanish flu virus, H1N1, made a return appearance in 2009 in the form of swine flu. Fortunately for humanity, H1N1's second appearance came in the guise of a far less virulent strain.